Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back. It's episode 40 today, and I welcome Sarah Krstyen of Molio to talk to us about data and video marketing. Before we get started, I'd love to hear from you. How was your 2020, and what are your big plans for 2021? Just send over an email to will@customersuperlick.com or tweet me at Will Lawrenson. You may remember a couple of months ago, we had Jeff Davis, the founder of Molio, on talking about the Molio method. Well, today I've got Sarah, who is the director of media and analytics, and we're going to be talking in more depth about how you can be using data to improve your advertising strategy. Let's get Sarah on now to explain more. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Could you tell us a bit about yourself, a bit of your background, and why you're doing what you do at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, Will. I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk with you. And like you mentioned, my name is Sarah, and I am the director of media and analytics at Molio. Molio is a full-service strategy, creative, and media agency based in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the United States. And I've been at Molio for, just about 5 years now, which sounds crazy. 5 years is such a round number. But my career actually didn't start out in the world of advertising. It actually started in the world of statistics. So I have a master's degree in statistics, and previous to working at Molio, I worked as a biostatistician in paediatrics. So I will tell you that there is no more noble job out there than saving babies with math, which is basically what we were doing. And that part of my job as a biostatistician, I absolutely loved. But the day-to-day for me of that particular job was definitely missing something. It was rare that I spoke to another human being in a day. And everyone I work with now at Molio can definitely tell you that I love to talk given the chance. So I actually guess I should be probably thanking you, Will, for letting me talk with you today. But anyways, I guess fast forward to basically what you might call me having a quarter life crisis. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life based on my background I had in statistics, but not really knowing what I wanted to do moving forward. And that's when I met a man named Jeff Davis, which is the CEO and founder of Molio, which I know you've had him as a guest on the show a little while back. So you've met Jeff, you've talked with Jeff. But when I met Jeff, he was giving a lecture on how his agency uses data to optimize video campaigns for their clients. And this was definitely very intriguing to me to hear this during this crossroads in my life, because with my background in statistics, data was essentially my middle name. So long story short, Jeff hired me and I began working on the media and analytics team at Molio. And I guess you can say the rest is history, but that's a little bit of my background and why I ended up at Molio doing what I do.
Cool. Yeah, sounds great. So was it a bit of a chance encounter?
Yes, a good chance encounter, I would say.
Cool. So in Molio then, what does a normal day look like for you?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about what a standard day looks like, but it might turn into what a standard handful of weeks look like at Molio. But so just a quick refresher on Molio, since like I mentioned, you have talked to our CEO and founder, Jeff. But Molio, we specialize in video advertising, and we have what we like to call a video first approach when developing campaigns for our clients. Now, I want to emphasize video first as opposed to video only for everyone listening. Video first, not video only. So what we do is we launch advertising campaigns with video at the epicenter, and then build everything else we do for a brand off of the video that we create. So this has been incredibly effective for the brands we've worked with because, you know, in this day and age where we're constantly competing for consumers' time, and attention, there really is nothing more compelling than sight, sound, and motion, aka video. And in addition to that, video is a very malleable, and this is my favorite part, a very data-rich medium to use in advertising. So, now that we're speaking about data again, this brings me to one of the key reasons we're so successful with video, and that's something that has become affectionately known as the Molio method. Now, in a single phrase or a single sentence, I guess I would say the Molio method is the integration of creative and media. So really the creative side of advertising as well as the media side of advertising really working hard together. And this is really important to how our agency operates, because in everything we do, the creative team and the media team, we're working in tandem with each other. There's absolutely nothing siloed about the way that our two teams work inside of Molio. And we really believe in creating modular and variable video content that we can then test and optimize through media to not only drive results for our clients, but to garner insights and learnings that then inform the next steps of our advertising campaigns. So then this eventually leads us to a strategy that is not only scalable, but everyone has high confidence that it will be effective because we've proven that all pieces of this strategy will work along the way. So I guess then the big question is, how do we prove that all of those pieces of the strategy we've built are going to work? And the answer, I think, is really what we're gonna dig into and talk about today, which is data and advertising. So I guess from a big picture point of view or a high level point of view, that's what a standard day, but more maybe what a standard handful of weeks looks like working at Molio.
Yeah, it'd be good to dive into the data side a bit more. But also
Sure.
what I think is particularly interesting is, as Jeff mentioned on the podcast a few episodes ago, this unsiloed approach and how data works very closely. I guess data and the media side, but works very closely with the creative side. Because I know that, from what I've seen, both in-house and working with agencies, they tend to be quite separate. You get the creative side, which goes off with kind of the brand guidelines and everything, and the creative idea for the campaign, produces that creative, hands it to the media team, who then goes and spends money with that video or image or whatever. And there might be a bit of tweaking, if it's static creative, then maybe there's some back and forth and they try and optimize it and stuff. But if it's video, it tends to be, here's the video, use it. It can maybe be cut up a little bit into a smaller segment, but otherwise it's the targeting and the kind of the media end stuff that gets tweaked, and that's it. So it'd be good to hear about how that system works for you guys, and how you use data to direct everything.
Yeah, for sure. So data, depending on who you are, can either be very scary or just part of your everyday existence. And for me, with my background in statistics, I fall into the latter group, but I'll tell you kind of the ins and outs of how we use data to integrate with the creative side at Molio, and really the secret to why Molio's media and analytics team has better database decision making than other groups out there. And it's because we can not only crunch numbers and do the analysis part, but we understand the numbers, we understand the data, and we understand what different numbers mean or indicate, and then we can make decisions or glean actionable, keyword actionable insights from those numbers that then guide us to our next steps for our clients or for the brands that we work with. So, data really is just a bunch of numbers, but the key is figuring out the story those numbers tell. That's the trick. And that's how we start to integrate with the creative side. So like I mentioned previously, we specialize in video, and video is very data rich, and there's a lot of things we can learn from running video ads. So let me give you a few examples so that, we're not just looking for, did someone click on the ad or did someone not click on the ad? With video, we can look at things like, did consumers view our videos to completion? So indicating whether it was engaging or not. Is there a point in the video that consumers are viewing to, but then they seem to be dropping off? We can look at really what's the difference between consumers that view the video to completion versus the ones that did not. Are there key differences between those two groups of people? And does that indicate to us whether there might be a hole in our messaging strategy or a hole in our targeting strategy that we need to address based on that data and that information? A few other examples might be, were consumers that viewed our video more likely to purchase or more likely to remember the brand name? And I could go on and on and on at all the different data points that you can look at with video, but it's just a lot more than looking at, okay, well, did someone see our ad and then click on it? There's a lot of different pieces of data we can look at. So when we first launch a video campaign for a brand, and it depends on the brand, but the first 6 to 12 weeks typically are very intense, where the creative and media teams are constantly going back and forth together, determining which hooks, which reasons to believe, which calls to action, and other messaging points resonate and are the most effective with different audiences on different platforms, in different states of mind, during different parts of the consumer journey. So that's something that the media team and the creative team work together on. And we're really just looking for the story that the data is telling us so that we can then scale our advertising efforts with a lot of confidence. So that's a little bit about our approach to data and how my team, the media team, integrates with the creative side of our agency and works closely together in those initial weeks of launching any brand new video campaign for a brand.
Yeah, like you said, it's not just looking at those kind of top level figures of how many people watch 30 seconds of the video and how many people click. It's kind of, what do these people look like once they've kind of taken one of these actions, and at what point are people actually dropping off on this video? It's interesting to see that, X number of people drop off by 30 seconds. But I guess what you guys are looking at is why they're dropping off at 30 seconds. What's the message there? Or, what's happened, I guess, what's happened in that video for the first 30 seconds, and then what happens at the 30-second mark that makes people drop off?
Totally.
So I imagine if someone watches a video for 30 seconds, there must have been something engaging about it. Unless, what's the cutoff for skipping on YouTube? Is it 30 seconds or is it shorter than that?
So for skipping, it's actually, if you're running in-stream skippable ads, it's actually 5 seconds. So it's really quick that people have the opportunity to skip. But then what's considered an actual view is 30 seconds if the creative is 30 seconds long or longer.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you'd see that they've not skipped after the 5 seconds. There must be something for most of these people. There must be something quite interesting. So they're then dropping off at 30 seconds. Maybe there's a message which is actually putting people off.
Right. Yes.
Cool. So are there any myths and misconceptions about using data for marketing optimization? Because in my opinion, there's lots of businesses which almost go too far or focus too much on that side and actually lose sight of the creative side. But yeah, it'd be good to hear your opinion on, I guess, what mistakes people are making with data as well.
Yeah, so I can definitely talk about both misconceptions and some mistakes that I think are pretty common or pretty just easy to make when you're looking at marketing data. And like I mentioned earlier, something that really sets the Molio media analytics team apart is our understanding of the data that we're working with. And really what I mean when I say that is we don't just see the numbers and say things like, this is the best performing audience, or this is the best performing creative. We like to go one layer deeper and ask ourselves why that's the best audience and why is that the best creative. Because, your marketing data, your advertising data, it isn't black and white. It isn't one dimensional. So, maybe I can give an example of how finding out why the data is saying what it is saying is so critical to a brand. So we recently worked with Celestial Seasonings, the tea brand, and part of our strategy, which was based on some consumer research they had done, was to go after people interested in yoga and meditation, because, tea can be a very calming or ritualistic thing for people, much like yoga and meditation can be. So, being the video agency, not surprisingly, YouTube was definitely one of the platforms that we were running ads on for Celestial Seasonings. And YouTube is a platform that is often used for guided yoga practice or guided meditation practice. So we ran our ads in front of that type of content on the platform, thinking that was a good way to marry up the Celestial Seasonings content with this yoga and meditation audience. But as it turned out, it actually performed not that great. The numbers or the data, the metrics, they weren't stellar. And so instead of at that point just deeming yoga and meditation as an audience that just wasn't going to work, which I think would be very easy for a lot of brands or a lot of agencies to decide to do, we asked ourselves, okay, why is this happening? Since we did have this consumer research that told us this should be a good audience. So digging into the data, it turned out that people were not only not clicking on our ads, they weren't even watching any really measurable amount of our ads. They skipped the ads almost immediately at that 5-second mark. And so, digging into the data, we found out that this is because when people turn to YouTube to do a yoga practice or meditation practice, they just want to get to it. They don't want to be stopped or interrupted. They don't want to watch a video and click through to purchase something at that point in time because they came to the platform to do something. So instead of abandoning this yoga and meditation audience altogether, we did some testing on some different platforms where we could also easily target people interested in yoga and meditation, but in a way that we wouldn't be interrupting their practice of either yoga or meditation. And on these other platforms, so one of these platforms was Pinterest, the audience performed incredibly. So, at the end of the day, this was the right audience and it was the right video content with the right messages. We just had to find those people in the right mindset before serving them an ad for Celestial Seasonings. So, that's maybe a fairly basic example of what we do, but it gives you an idea of what I mean when I say we find out the whys behind what the data is saying. And I think that that's just a really easy mistake people can make is, okay, this isn't working, let's shut it off. And then they never think about it again, instead of, taking the time to go one layer deeper and figure out why something is actually happening.
Yeah, I think
so.
I guess from
that's
my
one mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think from my experience, in companies I've worked in, we've had like the PPC team, well, the Google team, and then there's the kind of media team, which is like Facebook, Instagram. Don't think it was YouTube, but yeah, I guess effectively what would happen is the Google team would run those campaigns, would try something out, and it wouldn't work for them. But it wouldn't then get pushed across to the media team to try it on Facebook or Pinterest or something. Yeah. It was just it would go dead at that stage. So there was they missed that crossover point that you've been describing, where they said, well, do we try it somewhere else? It's almost because of the team setup, it's almost like it's not their that channel's not their responsibility, so they don't even consider it.
Right. Yep.
So I think, yeah, that's, for me, that's one of the problems that occurs, and it can occur with when you've got agencies involved as well. When the agency is not really covering other channels, things can just go dead because they've tried it, it didn't work. That's their job done. They move on to something else.
Right, exactly. Yep. No, not as much of a sharing of information kind of mindset when you have so many different groups working with one particular brand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Any other kind of misconceptions or mistakes?
Maybe I would like to talk about one other, and this is, maybe more of a misconception rather than a mistake, at least as I see it. And I think it's really surrounding how we as marketers, as advertisers, we use and think about statistically significant data. Now, every single one of my professors from when I was getting my master's in statistics probably just died a little bit inside when I said that, because statistically significant data is what statisticians live by. But in marketing, I feel we can expand our mindset a little bit with our thinking around stat-sig data. Now, statistically significant data, it's quantifying whether a result is quote unquote real or if it just happened by chance. And the higher the statistical significance, the more likely a result is real or repeatable rather than just a random event of chance. Now, when I worked as a biostatistician, our statistical significance, of course, always had to be extremely, extremely high because we were dealing with people's lives. So we wanted to have very high confidence in our results and in our data. So when I look at it from the lens of advertising, however, Molio actually has a little bit of a different approach, and it has helped us be very nimble in the rapidly changing universe that the digital media is. And I think it's really helped us help some of the brands we work with keep up with their competition in the marketplace. And so this is going back to data. So like the key to reaching statistical significance is acquiring enough data to build that confidence level. So when we're talking about advertising, to collect real-time advertising data, that requires you to be spending advertising dollars, constantly needing to obtain statistical significance or high confidence levels can then become either very costly or it can really slow down, like I said, the speed at which brands need to move to keep up with their competition in the marketplace. So, unless you're amongst maybe the Coca-Colas of the world, and, I say that with absolutely no disrespect. We've worked with Coke's Innovation Group, and they are all very lovely people, fun people to work with. But, unless you're amongst the Coca-Colas of the world, you probably have to be very, very judicious with your money and with your time as an advertiser. It is then crucial that you determine where you have to be statistically significant and where you can afford to be what I like to call directionally significant. And, to me, directionally significant is just having enough data pointing you in a direction so that you can make some moves, make some progress. And I'll give you an example of a brand that we really used this approach kind of across the board with them. And it was when we were helping this brand to launch a new product into the market successfully. And this product was a probiotic chocolate. So, the idea of a probiotic chocolate was new in both the probiotic space as well as in the chocolate space. There wasn't any very direct competition when we were launching this product. And actually I'll give them a shout out. It's for a Belgian chocolate company we work with called Bouchard. And I will tell you, if you have not tried Bouchard chocolate, go ahead, do yourself a favor and get yourself some. I actually, even though it's 10 a.m., 10 in the morning where I'm at, I had a Bouchard cookie dough bite before jumping on this call with you, just because they're so good. So get yourself some Bouchard chocolate.
It's really funny you should say that, because actually Jeff mentioned that as well on the episode last time, and his reaction was pretty much the same. Like, you have to try this stuff.
Like, it really is just so good. You won't need Godiva. You won't need Lindt in your life. You won't, I mean, heaven forbid, you won't need Hershey. But yeah, get yourself some Bouchard chocolate. But anyway, back to when we were launching their probiotic chocolate, we made hypotheses surrounding what would work for the following things. So one of those things was package design. Another was site design and consumer journey. And then, of course, we had creative messaging and audience strategy in there as well. So we made some basic hypotheses around what we thought would work for those things. And, you could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing research and consumer studies regarding all of those things I just mentioned prior to ever running a single ad or selling a single piece of chocolate. Or, and this is the approach we took, you could begin running ads, begin selling actual product, and do what we like to call live market research. Because then, you're seeing how people react to your creative in what you might call the wild, or in their natural habitat of either YouTube or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever platform consumers might be on. And you see which audiences are more engaged. You see where consumers fall off in the consumer journey on the site, all while actually selling real product, creating real revenue. So it's really bringing revenue upstream in kind of the whole process of launching a new product. And then, as you go, you can finalize the site as you're collecting enough data to see that there's no more friction when people are checking out. You can move forward with the best creative message variation or variations based on a directionally significant sample size of consumers. And in the process, and this is my favorite part, no good ideas went to die in a biased focus group of like 20 people who are just there for the gift card that they were promised at the end. So it's this methodology that really works for brands that they need to figure out quickly. So quickly, either in time or quickly, like financially, whether or not this product is going to be a go or not.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think I've spoken to a bunch of people about this. People who run Facebook ads and things. They say you can start out. I think it's as little as about $5 a day advertising. Yes. So you don't have to have massive budgets.
Nope.
And I think Jeff mentioned it as well. In fact, he mentioned it about video. He said just get started. Like put some video together on your phone or something, and just try it out and just see what happens, and then kind of dig into the data a bit and try and understand what's going on and how you improve it from there. You don't need to spend even just thousands of dollars on it. Really, you can get you can get enough data quickly to be able to look at it and make some decisions yourself without needing that statistical significance.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. So what are some of the key things people should be considering if they want to use more data in their marketing, or actually make better use of the data in their marketing? That's probably the better question. Yeah,
that's a great question. And I think something that even when we start working with a brand, we definitely bring some perspective of this into the brand team that we're working with. And I can't say it enough that the key to unlocking the usefulness of your data is figuring out the story that your data is telling. And a lot of brands come to us, and it's actually very clear, even as an outside vendor, that the people managing a brand's data or the people analyzing the data sit separate from the key decision makers. And oftentimes the communication between the two is, more or less ineffective. And in those scenarios, it becomes even more important that we find the story behind the data so that Molio, we are not only executing the brand's advertising, which we were paid to do, but so that we are adding value to their actual business. And that's how we've become so beloved by so many of our clients, is we operate truly as a literal extension of their team. And we're not just a vendor, but we're a true partner. And so a lot of times when you're looking at your data, or looking at a brand's data to find the story, it can feel like you're reading a foreign language. So always, as a first step, when you're trying to make better use of your data, I would recommend simplifying your approach by looking for a few specific things. And there's 4 of them, so I'll just go through them. So the first thing I always recommend is looking for trends or themes in your data. So look for things that are occurring repeatedly or things that seem to be consistent. So these can be trends over time, themes across audiences or platforms. It can be a variety of things, but the first thing, always look for trends or themes in your data. And the second thing is kind of the opposite of this. It's looking for significant differences in your data or things that are inconsistent. Again, this can be differences seen between creatives. It can be differences seen between audience demographics, but just look for things that are different or inconsistent. And then the third thing is discrepancies in your data or outliers in your data. And this is different from looking for differences, because you're looking at discrepancies or outliers to determine, are they anomalies, or is there something important that we should be noticing here about this outlier piece of data? And then the last thing to look for are changes in your data. So in other words, look for where trends are ending or trends are stopping. And, sometimes these can be very significant changes in your data, or sometimes they can be more subtle. So maybe you have a trend of your CTR, your click-through rate going up week over week over time. And then you have a week where you have a huge spike in your CTR. Okay, what's going on right there? That's a big change in your data. But sometimes it can be much more subtle than that. You can have your CTR increasing at a consistent rate week over week, and then you have one week where it starts to plateau a little bit. So the rate it's increasing at just isn't as big as it was. So that's maybe an example of a more subtle change in your data. But the last thing I would look at, just to reiterate, is changes in your data, or in other words, where trends are ending or stopping. So those are the 4 things I would look at. And then one other thing I'd add, if you're trying to get more out of your brand's data, if you're the one analyzing the data or the person responsible for reporting on the data, it's sometimes tricky to translate what the data means, or why these pieces of data might be important to key stakeholders, let's say. So if that's the seat you sit in, I'd recommend changing your mindset from reporting to the key stakeholders to teaching the key stakeholders. And that slight change in mindset can really make a world of difference in how effective your communication is as the person who crunches the numbers to the people who need to go and make decisions based on what you're finding in the numbers. And if you use teaching language rather than reporting language, you'll find you can more easily communicate the story of the data, which in turn makes the information you're sharing more actionable. And that's really what makes your data useful as an advertiser and as a marketer, is making sure that it's actionable.
Yeah, absolutely. So just on that last point, I guess reporting versus teaching, can you just give a bit of an example of that? Is it kind of the difference between just saying these are the numbers, this is what's happening, and more of a why this has happened.
Yes, exactly. So you've probably picked up on what I keep. My favorite word is why. And when everyone at work listens to this, they're all just going to be laughing because they're going to be like, yeah, we hear you say, but why, but why, but why, but why all day long. But that is the key difference. So, there's really a big difference in saying, okay, these are the numbers, these are the KPIs, these are the metrics you should care about, and saying, okay, why you should care about them and why they are what they are. So if you leave the reporting mindset, which is really just, okay, what are the numbers, and go to why this is happening with the numbers, that really makes all the difference between reporting and teaching.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just so much more valuable. It's what I do all the time. Whenever I'm working with clients or in house, I've seen examples where we've had loads of feedback from customers saying their discount codes didn't work, and so the obvious first thing to do is test the discount code, and and see if it works. And a lot of the time it works, and you're thinking, well, it does work. So these people are wrong. They must be inputting it wrong, or you might check to see whether it's case sensitive or anything like that. But actually, in one particular case, it was because of just one of the terms and conditions of the code meant it just wasn't eligible for some of these purchases. And it just happened to be that was a very high frequency of the number of the purchases, or the attempts to purchase. Yeah. So the code was working exactly as intended, but people just didn't know it was supposed to work like that. And so the customers were having a problem.
Yeah.
But if you just report on it and say, like, X number of people are having problems with this, or it might be, the report would probably come through from, we've had X number of people, like 1,000 people put their email address in to get the code, and only 200 people have claimed it.
Yes.
So what, do we have an issue with our email or something like that? But then, actually, if you ask why have only these people redeemed it, and you might dig into the purchases, you might actually just ask some people or look at session recordings and things. But you find out they have been trying to use it, and for an unknown reason. And also, one of the issues was that the error codes generally aren't great. So the error code will just say this code is invalid, and therefore the customer thinks they've got an invalid code. They haven't got an invalid code. It's just not eligible for their purchase. I use the why a lot. I think it's really, really important. It actually reminded me of a book that I read years ago. I think it's analytics, web analytics 2.0.
Okay. Yes.
And one of the things he mentions is reporting versus analysis, and how so many companies will just report on data and say, like, this is the CPA this month. It's gone up by 15%. And that's kind of it. But he says, for every dollar you spend on reporting, you should be spending 9 on analysis and what that data is actually telling you, and what you should do with that data.
Yeah,
because
totally.
If you don't do that, I mean, for the most part, in these meetings where people start reporting data, it's just boring for everyone else because it's just a report. But also, it just doesn't drive growth. It doesn't drive creativity in the team either. But if you can explain why that data's changed in a certain way, it helps you kind of work towards fixing that problem, but it could also help someone else fix another problem.
Exactly. Yeah, really propels the business forward.
Yeah, exactly. Do you see any big trends coming in the way businesses use data for marketing?
Oh, yes, I definitely do. And I think it's something we've started to see impact the world of digital advertising, and will only impact it more as time goes on. And that's user privacy. So I think particularly in 2020, there's been a lot of changes to user privacy. And I think in the future, come 2021, we're going to see more and more privacy policies and laws and regulations put into place. And so as that happens, I think two things in particular are going to become more and more important as marketers. And the first thing is creative content. A lot of the recent changes to privacy policies on the big digital app platforms, at least, essentially have dampened our targeting capabilities in some way, shape, or form on the media buying side. And I think that will probably just continue to progress in some way. So if that's the case, brands are really going to need better and better creative content to hook, to qualify, and to convert their audiences, because we will be talking to or targeting more general groups of people. So we will really need the messaging and the creative to speak to the audiences we want to reach. And it has to be done in such a way that those audiences know we are speaking to them. And this is really interesting to me. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this evolves, because right now on a lot of platforms, the creative best practice is, for video anyway, is to have short form video. I hear it all of the time from major digital app platforms. Short form, short form, short form. 15 seconds is optimal. Only 30 seconds if you have to, and 60 seconds would be like the absolute longest video content you would ever have. And I think a lot of what has driven that is video is so quote unquote easy to make these days. Anyone can really be a video creator or a video editor with their smartphone. And because the market for consumer attention is so competitive, platforms say short form is best to, to reduce the amount of, I hate to say it, but crappy video out there that will pollute their platforms and negatively impact user experience, which is what all of these platforms care so much about. And at Molio, we don't believe in only short form. We believe in starting with long form and testing and optimizing modular video variations until we know with absolute certainty what the most effective 60 is, what the best 30-second is, and what the most impactful 15-second video spot is. So I guess for Molio, what I'm saying is bring on the new privacy restrictions, because we've got our creative process down and we know how to do this, so we're ready for it. But this is another reason why creative and media efforts cannot afford to be siloed. They absolutely have to work together, and it's just going to become more and more important. So if you're making significant media buys as a brand, I would definitely recommend that you find an agency or whoever you're working with that can also do your creative, so that your strategy for both creative and media are in sync, because there's going to come a day where you just aren't going to be able to be successful without complete synergy between the two, between creative and media. So with privacy policies continuing to get more strict, I think the first thing that's going to become more important is creative content. But the second thing that will become more and more important is media placement. So that's, where are you going to place your ads to speak to your audience in the right context, right setting, and right mindset? And if you think about it, Google and Facebook have become, what I would say is essentially broadcast TV for digital. And what I mean by that is you can reach just about anyone. Like, you can reach the masses on Google and Facebook these days. So, you're going to have to be more strategic about where you place your ads. And so a few platforms that I think will grow as privacy policies continue to evolve. One of those is Pinterest. So Pinterest is a lifestyle solution-oriented platform. You find people on the Pinterest platform looking for things that either fit into their life or things that will solve a specific problem they're experiencing. So knowing that that's the mindset that people are in when they come to Pinterest, that makes a media placement or an advertising placement on Pinterest potentially very strategic. Just knowing the mindset that the consumer is in when they're on that platform. Some other platforms that I think might continue, well, they're already growing rapidly and I think are just going to continue to do so are places from Amazon and like places like Amazon and Walmart. So, when I say Amazon, I mean everything from their Fire TV ads down to their sponsored brand ads. Because, people go to Amazon to buy things and, Amazon's to the point where people can buy just about everything there. So, but having that shopping mindset, like, for sure people are going to Amazon to shop. That's another key mindset that's going to be really valuable as a media placement and for placing your ads on Amazon, because you know why people are going there. So again, just to recap, creative content and media placement, I think, are going to become hugely important as privacy policy continues to grow and expand, because we're going to lose some of the refinement we currently have in our targeting capabilities, and we're going to have to figure out other ways to get that refinement. So I just think that's something that the advertisers of the world need to be ready for.
Yeah. So on that first point, in a way, you're basically saying, because you're not going to have the options to target people, you've got to basically learn what that targeting is through optimization of the adverts and the data there.
Yes.
So you can see, where they're dropping off in the videos or where they're clicking in the videos, therefore what messages are resonating, what aren't resonating, and therefore based on that, what these sort of people are.
Yes, you got to qualify your audience with the actual creative content rather than your targeting.
Yeah. And then I think, on the media placement side, I mean, I think it's what people should be doing anyway, really. Like you say, on Amazon, people are going there to buy. So if you can advertise on Amazon, you can be quite transactional about it. Whereas if they're on Facebook, you're interrupting them. Yes. You need to appreciate that. Same as Instagram. Maybe Instagram's even a little bit more different as well. It's like kind of, I think, a little bit similar to Pinterest in that people are looking for kind of inspiration and just things that make them feel good. But there's less of that, maybe a bit less buying intent on Instagram than on Pinterest. Yep. So if you can kind of understand that behavior and use that to build your content and your media and your creative, you're at least at a better starting point for then optimizing. Yes. Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to marketing?
I do have a few. And again, when my team listens to this, they're all going to be laughing to themselves and probably listing off all of my pet peeves in their heads, because I'm definitely vocal about them. But I'll to spare you and your listeners, I'll just go ahead and share a few with you. And the first pet peeve I definitely have is the use of vanity platforms in media strategies. And when I say vanity platforms, I mean platforms like TV that are expensive and drive metrics like big impression numbers, which in a lot of cases, if those aren't high quality impressions, to me, they really are just vanity impressions. Like you're paying for them to say you paid for them. They might not really be driving your brand's objectives. And I say that vanity platforms are a pet peeve of mine because it just absolutely kills me, Will, when we get a set of objectives for a brand, and then literally the very next sentence I hear is, let's run TV, when a TV buy so clearly does not drive any of the brand's objectives forward. So, I'm using TV as an example, but it can also happen with, new trending social platforms before the efficacy of their ad product has really been proven. But, because it's the new shiny platform, people want to buy ads on it. So, it just drives me crazy when the media is not purposeful and it's not strategic. And I should also probably say, though, for the record, I have made TV buys, but I can promise you that they were all very strategic in every case.
Yeah, I've actually
so that's my
I've experienced that myself when I was in-house at one business. Now, I'll try and keep the details a little vague. We were asked for no real reason. We were asked as a marketing team to launch on a new social platform. It was kind of a choice. I think we were on Twitter and Facebook at the time. And part of it was, limited resource. We didn't have a dedicated social media person. So managing multiple platforms, fairly challenging.
Yes.
I pointed out that our content would be pretty good for Pinterest. It was, we had access to huge amounts of content, which would be perfect for Pinterest. It was kind of recipes, holidays, things like that. News on, or like auto content and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I also pointed out that Pinterest was getting a bit of a reputation for being quite a good sales channel. It was actually converting traffic into sales.
Yeah.
And the response was, well, that's not how I use Pinterest. So I think we should use Instagram because that's where everyone is these days.
Yes.
And that was kind of it.
Okay.
So it was kind of this, like, just without any reason, just it was this shiny new platform that apparently everyone's using and everyone's loving. So we need to be on it.
Yeah.
And not really think about if that's the right channel, and also just not considering, like, if we're limited on resource and we want to open up a new channel, let's really try and identify the one that's going to work for us.
Right.
I think that's kind of like with TV or here, at least here in London, tube advertising tends to, I think, have the same kind of, get used in the same way. It's seen as those, you're a big boy brand if you're advertising on the tube, on the London Underground. You don't really have to have a strategy for it, and the agencies selling it to you will just sell it to you. Like, they will obviously give you a bit of a strategy behind it, kind of, which involves spending more money generally. But there's no real thought through approach to it. At times it tends to be, right, we've got the budget now, we're at that size, let's do tube advertising. So that's one of mine as well. But go on. I'm
glad you share that one with me. But okay, my next one is it actually has to do with creative. So I'm sure you're probably thinking that that's comical coming from a media and analytics girl, but like I mentioned, creative content is going to become more and more important. And we kind of talked about this a little bit before. It really just pains me when creative teams develop their creative, ship it off to media, and then assume their job is done. Media teams, the people actually managing the media buys and seeing their performance in real time, are definitely going to have the most valuable input or feedback on the creative content. So, I don't care that media people aren't professionally trained creatives. Their insights can really help make the creative better. And that's something I absolutely love about Molio, is our creative and media teams truly do work in tandem. The inside joke with our managing partner at Molio, who came up as a creative through large holding company type agencies, so he is very good at his job, is don't let the 50-year-old guy come up with the creative unchecked when millennial moms are the target audience. And the reason that's the running joke is he is a 50-year-old guy on the creative side, and I'm a millennial mom on the media side. And, whether the creative team likes it or not, I'm constantly giving creative feedback and like what it looks like from a media point of view, from a media POV. And I think that is actually something that sets Molio apart is, during the times of COVID, we don't sit 5 feet apart, but back when we were in the office, like the media team and the creative team, like they sit right next to each other. And a lot of agencies, especially larger agencies, media teams and creative teams can sit on separate floors, and there's not a whole lot of communication between the two. So I think that's something that really sets Molio apart and elevates our creative, is that they welcome feedback from the media team and actually implement it. And it's like an iterative process that really just makes our creative better and better.
Yeah, exactly. It's that iterative approach to it. It's you can come up with a great campaign, put that creative together, but as soon as you start advertising it, that's when you start to learn whether it's actually good or whether people are actually responding to it.
Yeah.
And then there'll be other bits that can be fed in as well. Like obviously you're not using video on paid search, but when paid search, the team doing paid search works out what's working for them, they can feed that in and say, well, this messaging is working really, really well for people who have an intent to purchase. And this is messaging that works really well on those keywords, which are maybe more information led.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it's definitely really important. And it's disappointing when creative gets handed over and then you're told that's it. They're moving on. They've got other projects to do.
Yes.
This is your batch of creative to work with.
Yeah.
So just finally then, do you feel there's a particular area of marketing which is a bit underrated?
I do. And some of the biggest buzzwords, I guess you would say, in marketing today all surround things like data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, which is great. But don't forget that when we are advertising, we are trying to sell products and services to actual human beings. So there's still a critical need, in my opinion, for a human component in the process. And I think especially during 2020 and through COVID-19, we learned, or maybe relearned, the importance of human connection. So while technology continues to advance to make us more productive and more efficient, there's still a huge need for strategic thinking on all sides of advertising, whether it's developing the creative or developing the media strategy, figuring out how to measure success, or in needing to completely overhaul what we're doing because a worldwide pandemic hit. A human touch is still very necessary. And to go back to what I said literally first thing when we started talking about why I wasn't satisfied as a biostatistician, it was the human interaction I was missing. And I've definitely found that in the world of advertising, even if my role is very heavy on the data and analytics side. So I just think right now, the most underrated aspect of marketing is the role of people, of humans in the process. And it's actually what makes this job really fulfilling for me.
Yeah, it's been mentioned a couple of times on the podcast. I think one of the earlier episodes was with Parry, the founder of Phrasey, which is an AI tool for copywriting.
Yep.
And he mentioned that one of the really valuable things about AI tools and Phrasey in particular is not that it replaces like someone's job. It's actually that it takes away some of the more repetitive tasks that can be automated and allows people to be more creative and take that more strategic view, which then allows you to actually improve what you're doing rather than just, sit there looking at data, I suppose.
Right. Yes.
and thinking that, if you could, it's good to automate stuff and bring in tools to help you, but
absolutely
only if you're then kind of using the opportunity to review things from a more like strategic and creative point of view, I suppose.
Exactly. Yes.
Cool. All right. This has been absolutely amazing stuff. I do love talking about data and in marketing and all the different approaches and the why. I think the why is really, really important. I think a lot of people miss that out. If people want to find out more, either about data or about Molio, what's the best way of getting in touch?
Yeah, so people can either reach me or Molio in a few different places. So one is our website. So that's just www.molio.com, or on LinkedIn, just search Molio. And I guess Molio is spelled Molio. And, you can also reach out to us, or rather just keep tabs on what we're up to on Instagram. Our handle is Molio Agency.
Okay. Do you put a lot of, do you update a lot there?
Yeah, so we're pretty active there, and we show all sides of the house. So what we're doing from a company culture perspective, to what creative projects we've worked on, to some cool media things we're doing. So you can really see everything we're doing there.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I'll have to check that out myself then.
Do it.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Will. I really, really appreciate it.
So as you heard, it's really important to understand why the data is telling you something, not just what it's telling you. You can't just look at clicks and conversions. You've got to look into more detail. How long are people viewing your videos for? Do they view them to completion, indicating they're really engaging? Or is there an obvious point at which viewers are dropping off? It's not as simple as saying this is the best creative, this is the best audience. You have to really dig deeper and understand the why. If you can do that and understand why a certain piece of creative resonates with a certain target audience, you'll understand your customers better. You'll be able to optimize your advertisements even further. By digging deeper, you'll be able to understand that it's not just the case of, this audience doesn't work. It might just be the case that you're targeting them in the wrong place. If you want to take your advertising to the next level, you've got to be prepared to really dig into the data and understand it properly. If you'd like to learn more about data and advertising, reach out to Sarah on LinkedIn or head over to molio.com. Any other podcast questions, feedback, guest requests, send them over to will@customerswhoclick.com. Next week, I'm talking with Ollie Bridge, Bonjoro, and we're going to be talking about personalization and how you can take steps to personalize on a more individual basis to really surprise and delight customers. But until then, keep those customers clicking.